so much of the 6 hours depends on a conversation that Grace has with Edward in a study, and she tells him her story, and it forms the spine of the thing, and many different iterations come off of that conversation. But the filming of that conversation must have been so intimate for the two of you. Talk to me a little bit about what that was like for the two of you.
It was like an intimate marathon because we shot it in 6 days at the end of the shoot. And I think we went through, how many pages? 60 pages of dialogue in 6 days, which is a lot.
Unheard of.
Yeah, and it was a real kind of as much as it was like a mental task, it was also physical for us and for our crew because we were sitting still all day long for hours and hours and hours, and we were also shooting down by the lakeshore. And so on top of, all of this very kind of subtle psychological work happening between Edward and I, there would also be a plane that would fly over every 10 to 15 minutes, depending on rush hour, every 5 minutes. And so we would pause for the planes because we had to keep rolling, we had to get through it. So we would get to these very dramatic points, and then you just hear, Mary would be somewhere in the background being like, plane, trying to hold it together, and then, okay, we're good, and then you finish the scene. So it was really intense.
I would say it was amazing. It was amazing how they were able to hold the performance and pick it back up. Because it was driving us all, when it wasn't a plane, it was a motorbike, or something. Laughably, what we call the sound stage, the sound stage because it's really noisy. But it was incredible actorly discipline, I thought, from both of you.
Yeah. I mean, massive credit to Sarah because, to be fair, Sarah had many more lines than I had, and I was actually pretty amazed. I never said it because, again, we don't like to compliment her. But it was amazing. I mean, she had these huge monologues, and that's seriously hard work for anyone. But it was amazing.
We know every detail of each other's face really well.
That's beautiful, actually. Is there a question?
That was shot in every scene. I would do one take where it was an extreme close-up, so that you really did read what and matching that, because so you saw very subtle variations, which incredibly subtle variations of emotion, and they had they would have to pick that back up and match what they just done. Oh, and then in the most emotional and sort of poignant scene, we had about 10 minutes footage where there was a camera malfunction, and at the end of the day, like finishing at like 3 a.m. or something. Someone came to me and said, we lost. I realized that we just lost the crucial close-ups of the most crucial scenes. And we had to restage them. And I thought, how am I going to tell Sarah that she has to go back to that place? Because it was very, right?
Yes, yeah.
Very much, very do it. But it was amazing. And actually, we what can you do? You have no choice. You find time another day, and you have to go back into that place and recreate it. But you did do it. You did it.
Yeah, I do remember that, you telling me that. It was also kind of one of those moments in your life where you just kind of are sitting there and you were like, there's no Santa Claus, and your dog died. It was so brutal.
The tear quivering on your eyelid was real at that moment. Totally. Does anybody want to throw out anything right now? How did you have faith, Mary, that those still scenes would work? How did you know that it was going to be kinetic the way it turned out to be?
I always thought they would work. It's funny because I think everyone was really worried about them, and I know the crew were like, oh my God, 60 pages of dialogue with just two people sitting there. But my feeling is if you have great actors and great dialogue, you're fine. So I just moved forward really feeling that there was so much going on in those scenes, and I found them so fascinating just to read. If you have great actors who can really do it, and I'm going to give Edward a compliment. He's a great listening actor,
They searched, long and hard for Dr. Simon Jordan, And I remember when your tape came in, how excited, everyone was because of how great you acted and listened.
It's not easy, listening's an art. So I just felt like if you have the right people, and I didn't want to shoot them in a fancy way. I didn't want to try and, I'm going to shoot it, keep the camera circling around them. They were shot very classically. The only thing I wanted was to have enough different sizes and to have these, at some point, especially for the moments when we come in and out of flashback, to be really tight on the faces. And the other thing was, I also knew it would work because it's not, all these scenes are of very still conversation are leading into very dramatic scenes, action scenes. So they're broken up. And I guess, and the one other thing I would say about it that I did know that I was going to need was to get these very, very tight macro shots of Sarah sewing. Because I knew that we would be cutting a lot and we'd be going from different takes, but I also wanted, actually my husband my husband who was the director to shoot the second unit of those beautiful shots of the sewing, because I knew also that you wanted to keep the whole story of the sewing and the quilt making as a little thread running through it, and it was something that would form like in music, would be a little theme. And that it would be something that would be very, in practical terms, very valuable to have something tight shot to cut to.
But also, going back to the scenes being still and whether they would work, it's again a testament to Sarah's writing and obviously stemming from Margaret's book, but there's so much going on underneath those scenes that it's a gift for any actor when you get to have dialogue where everything is under the surface. You're playing so much under the surface, it's not obvious. And when you have scenes like that, you don't have to do much because you're just thinking the things you need to think, and you let the camera just. And when I read Sarah's scripts, that was the first thing that you read these scenes, and I was like, there's so much going on underneath. And and it's a dream for actors that, because unfortunately, a lot of stuff now is just on the page. What you see is what you get. There's not a lot of subtext, But Sarah's was thick with it, so it's great.
And that's actually why you also wanted to shoot it simply, because you really wanted to just focus on the faces and on the undercurrents.
On the thinking, yes.
Yeah, he's trying to find out, and she has to calculate how much she's going to say, because obviously she wants to keep him there. But on the other hand,
So there's a Scheherazade-like element
it's like
too.
it is like a tennis match.